have Zach Brusack back up here again to cover for one of his colleagues, and he is the Florida Fire Manager, for those of you who have just come into the session, for the Nature Conservancy. And he's going to talk about land management methods at the Disney Wilderness Preserve.
Thanks, Lita. Long time no see for those of you who were here before. I want to echo what Morgan was saying. What's just amazing about Florida, and when we go and talk to other folks in the country, is everybody works so well together. I think a lot of it is because we're crammed in this state. We've got, it's a 34 million acre state. I think about 9 million acres is public land, which is staggering. Half feds, half state, some of the counties. Private lands that are really encouraged to continue to do what their 4 or 5 generations have done, which is work the lands. And all of those people together, what ties them together, and Morgan's right, you can argue about season of fire and species, and the truth of it is, what ties everyone together is fire. That's how we work this land. So we are in an amazing state. You're supported legally. Our burn laws are some of the best. They've been copied in other states now. Pennsylvania has them. Our own laws. It's pretty amazing. So when I know, Morgan, you've experienced this. When we go to these other states to talk about fire councils, and we show them pictures of like people in a room with cowboy hats and patches of fed patches and biologists, and everyone works together. Well, yeah, because we do. The public doesn't care really why we do this. I hate to tell you, they care about the smoke. And as far as I know, the smoke is not color coded. The Nature Conservancy could have green smoke. Oh, no. All they want is, so our goal really, all of us can argue about why we're burning, but the truth of it is what we want is the public to keep allowing us to burn. It's the truth. They could shut us down, all of us. So we have to continue to offer them a unified face on fire. That's just my 2 cents. So it's really, really cool. It's a good state. So yes, like Lita said, I'm substituting for Adam Peterson, one of the Nature Conservancy's best land managers and burners. And again, any questions specific to the Disney Wilderness Preserve or the Nature Conservancy's management, write that email down and bug him about it. He's awesome. He's an amazing, amazing source of information and knowledge. So I'll focus a little bit on our land, the DWP, Disney Wilderness Preserve, and just really focus on our fire management capacity, what we've learned, how we do fire. So basically, the Nature Conservancy, we have within the Central Florida region 6 managed preserves, Disney Wilderness Preserve, Tiger Creek, a few others, 21,000 acres all told. It represents a wide variety of natural habitats. Something I joked about earlier about no elevation in Florida. This is sort of from Kissimmee down to Highlands County, and there's elevation there. You'd be amazed within 10, 15 feet, you could cross 3 or 4 different communities, and everything changes within that. But all of them need fire at some interval or another. It could be every 1 to 2 to 3 years, could be every 5 to 10 to 15 years. In some cases with some of these weird scrubs, we don't know. So whenever someone tells you actually that they know something about scrub, the truth of it is it's our best guess. So our goal really is to manage all those ecosystems at the appropriate fire return interval. We really want to get back to multiple aged pine overstories with lots and lots of really healthy functioning ground cover, with functioning water systems as well within those ground covers. A lot of our ecosystems in Central South Florida have a lot of water components, where we have wiregrass, sometimes goes what's called cutthroat grass, which grows in really wet habitats, but it also needs fire too. So the Disney Wilderness Preserve was a site that was purchased about 20 some odd years ago as mitigation for the Walt Disney World company. Walt Disney likes to grow, and so when they were building their Animal Kingdom and some of their other things, their Disney Celebration Complex, there's actually houses you can buy that are built by Disney. They have to mitigate for the impacts on site. And primarily before that, you just simply make a wetland, you do something kind of funky, which sometimes doesn't work, by the way. So the idea was, let's buy a giant chunk of land that was going to be a golf course in a community. We'll set it aside, we'll invest money, we'll manage it and restore it. And it worked fantastic. Other folks joined in, the Greater Orlando Aviation Authority, the airport, basically added on to this 8,000 acre site to make it 12,000 acres today. It's an incredible success story. So basically the water flow on site was really messed up because it was ditched and diked for all kinds of uses on site, which impacted the fire. Those of you in the fire business know, who here loves to go burn areas with lots of organic soil and muck that's dry? Who here loves that? Nobody loves that. Ironically enough, a lot of these wetland ecosystems that do dry need fire, but the Florida Forest Service is not going to allow you to tell them, can I get an authorization for a fire that could last about 2 months? It's going to smoke out all of I-4 and click. That's the other thing too I want to real quickly mention. We can argue a lot about species and fire needs, but the truth of it is the folks doing the fires now sign their name on that burn unit prescription legally. Everything that they do there's a lot of risk, a lot of gray hairs. I'm actually only 25 years old, so all this came from writing burn prescriptions. But having said that, we can do a lot of things. We really can on these sites. So our goal really on that Disney Wilderness Preserve site was to basically satisfy the requirements of the permit for Disney. Within that, really demonstrate how we would restore these disturbed pine flatwoods, these mesic flatwoods, these marsh areas, restore water flow and fire flow. And I do think of fire in a weird way as flowing across landscapes too, because it does. It flows where it burns and it stops where it can't. It just so happens there's lots of houses now where it can't go. So we do a lot of work on the fire capacity. We also have working cattle leases on site because we also understood that that's a partnership that we want to continue working with as well. I mentioned before we owe a huge debt to the ranchers, and we do. So we want to show that on our site we can also maintain working cattle ranches while at the same time restoring some sites that have been disturbed from other reasons. And it's worked out very, very well. We have lots of research partnerships. As we alluded earlier, lots of people come to Florida. The Disney Wilderness Preserve used to be wilderness, now it's surrounded by Kissimmee, and then there's Disney off here. And so a lot of universities and other researchers have now come to our place to do work because we're one of the last natural big places left. People like to build houses next to parks and preserves. So the University of Central Florida doing lots of carbon work, trying to figure that kind of stuff out right there. It's a great place. So we encourage all kinds of researchers. We think of it as a working lab as well as a working range. I just showed this real quick as one of our other sites, literally not more than an hour south of Disney Wilderness Preserve, also managed to restore fire return intervals, has pine flatwoods that are just weirdly different because they're literally 10 feet higher than the stuff at Disney Wilderness Preserve. And then there's all kinds of different plants and all kinds of different needs. So we at the Nature Conservancy try to focus on what those ecosystems, from an ecosystem standpoint, really need to continue and to preserve their integrity as that unique ecosystem. Well, either there's 70 ecosystems in Florida, give or take, depending on who you talk to, and so each one of them has their own sort of need to keep them unique and viable. And of course the animals that Morgan mentioned earlier. We have a lot of species in Florida that, and this is hard to get across to members of the public that don't get it, or if they move down here from a place that doesn't burn a lot. If you don't have fire on some of these sites, you literally will lose gopher tortoises, red cockaded woodpeckers, and the scrub jay, which literally is the most anal bird around because it has to have its habitat just right. And if it's not just right, it'll simply move somewhere else. And that was okay when Florida didn't have all of our roads and houses. Some place didn't burn, the jays moved to a place that did burn, but now they can't do that because they moved to a house, they eat peanuts, and then house cats eat them. So we've got to maintain a matrix of different burn regimes on these sites to preserve that jay. And actually, this should be our state bird, by the way. We have, I think, the mockingbird. Oh, that's boring. That should be our state bird. Found nowhere else. So those of you who are interested in getting best bird on your bird life list, you're in the right state. So we're tasked with protecting these species unique to many places in Florida, at the same time preserving the processes that built these ecosystems over time, and that is natural water flow and natural fire flow. So it's tough to juggle that, it really is. And oh, by the way, don't let fires escape your property and kill people. That's sort of high on the list too. So we use prescribed fire as our primary management tool within the Disney Wilderness Preserve and our other sites as well. Why? Like Morgan showed you before, we've had lightning here for so many years. We've had Native Americans lighting stuff on fire. I mentioned earlier, I did it when I was 7. These plants and animals depend upon water for their survival. And in many ways, some of our rare, unique hammock habitats that have orchids and ferns that don't burn, if you build up areas that with lots of fuel around those hammocks and they burn into the hammocks, those hammocks are gone. Fire will eliminate ecosystems that don't like fire. So in a weird way, we have to burn things often to keep fuel loads down so those hammocks don't burn. So in many places we keep areas protected from fire with fire, which is kind of unique. So if we put in enough fire that is a more natural return interval, the ecosystems themselves can sort of be a bit more durable. They can handle changes in weather or changes in climate. It allows the fire managers who sign our names on those plans to have a wider burn window to burn our places under. We talk about burn prescriptions all the time, and many of them are very tight and constrained. If you have roads, and Morgan showed you a picture, that was his house, by the way, nice house. Those things will restrict a burn manager's ability to light the fire. So the more we burn, ironically enough, allows us to have much, much wider burn windows. And all of us here in Florida, from ranchers to ecologists, need more days to burn. We really do. So in a weird way, that's one of our goals too. If we can prove that we can keep burning a lot, the neighbors get used to it. Believe it or not, if you burn often, most neighbors kind of get used to it. Let them know you're burning, and more often than not, they don't mind too much. So again, increased grassy fuels in these ecosystems is a more natural state, but it allows us as land managers much more freedom and flexibility to burn under different conditions. Much is made about season of fire. The older I get, the more I realize, sometimes you've just got to burn no matter what the season is. You go back to the growing season of fire if you want to, but if the conditions are right and the wind directions are favorable, just go. Get it burned. Oftentimes that's the most effective key. We're trying to do that at the Disney Wilderness Preserve. Show that the more you burn, it's okay. These ecosystems can often reset themselves back to a growing season regime. So tactics and equipment, we average about 4,000 to 6,000 acres on 30 burn days annually. That's about what we average. This is just on the Disney Wilderness Preserve. The fires can be from 10 to 2,000 acres in a day. Crew size is 6 to 12. The Nature Conservancy abides by federal fire standards, which means we have to have a certain number of crew, we have to have a certain amount of training. It allows us to work with partners as diverse as DOD on bombing ranges to private landowners. We can work with anybody, and we love that. Typically we use a lot of ground ignition. We don't do a lot of aerial ignition, although we do help the Forest Service with some of their large-scale fires. We try to utilize natural fire breaks wherever possible, but we're very, very careful about that. Wetlands and streams can be fire breaks, but we've learned that after hurricanes tend to knock canopies out and down. So natural fire breaks that we counted on become very open and dry. Fires that we thought would stop didn't stop. We learned that the hard way. But I'm a big fan of putting that fire break in. I think if you have a natural area that you're trying to preserve with fire, you have to give up a certain portion of it. If it's next to roads, houses, put your own road in as a good fire break. Don't cheat on fire breaks. Make them defendable and dependable. Because we have to do the best job we can to make these fires safe and all within their unit boundaries. We have to, all of us have to. Holding and suppression, we've really gotten good with using UTVs and ATVs. This is sort of our nice little equipment picture. Back in my day when I was doing fires, well, a long time ago, we used UTVs, the three-wheelers, just to bring people lunch. Those are always dangerous and fun. We always used massive trucks to do our fires. We found now that these amazing UTVs, ATVs, John Deere's, Polarises, can be retrofitted with a little bit of water carrying capacity. And the more you burn, the lower your fuels are, the easier it is to control fires and do ignition operations with those smaller vehicles. Quicker and more dependable, you get around fast. And often now we've used these larger Type 6 or Type 4 engines as just simply tenders, waiting on the corner in case something goes wrong, refill. We've really gotten much more flexible and mobile with how we do fire. And as you all know, anyone who knows fire people in general know that they love to build things and tinker with things and we don't call it toys, that's so degrading. But if I showed this picture to a bunch of fire folks, that's what they'd say. But we do love the ability to borrow from our partners and how they do stuff. You'd be amazed the amount we've learned from our ag partners on tanks and pumps. Something small, efficient, and dependable. So we use these a lot now, and I can't say enough for them. But just be careful. There's always an issue of those things flipping and going fast, but I'm a huge fan now of the UTVs, ATVs. We try to monitor best we can. Like every other group and agency and private landowner, we've lost a lot of staff. So we used to do a lot of really good monitoring, but we try to do the best we can on just seeing what happened after your fires, when you burned, was there adequate rainfall afterwards, the big things, post-burn evaluations. Did the fire do what you wanted it to do? So within the Disney Wilderness Preserve and our other sites, we try that best we can. could be community response. We used to measure palmetto height a lot, pine densities, gopher tortoises, how many there are. We do a lot of work on measuring live fuel moisture. That's, to be honest with you, even more important than what you see that KBDI or Keach Bio Drought Index, that the state lets us know if things are dry or not. Those of you who burn understand that everything is so dependent upon your site, your soils. What we found is it's really worth it to monitor your live fuel moisture on site and your soil moisture. It goes back to control issue. You don't want to burn muck. You don't want to let things get out. And so that, to us, is really key. And it's helped us do fires much more effectively. Yeah, we have invasives, and you know what? Some of this stuff, you throw your hands up, and it's like, you know, they're here to stay. Kogan grass, Natal grass, rosary pea, hogs, all of these things cause us great grief. If only we could train the hogs to sort of, you know, do their damage in a straight line, we could get them to make fire breaks. We can't do that. But those are just, I hate to say some of the stuff is like, you know, in some ways I can't wait to just simply quit these jobs and hand it off to these new young kids who are so enthusiastic and not cynical yet. Raise your hand. So you think you can control those hogs, don't you? I love those young days. I thought that too when I graduated. I'm not being cynical. And then real quick, Morgan, he had a list of the, you know, the challenges. I love that word, challenges to control burning in Florida. And there's a lot. But we are also in a state where we routinely burn 1.5, 2.2 million acres a year statewide. And that's everybody, from sugarcane to folks burning for jays. So we do get it done. We really do. But there's all kinds of things. And I'm just going to bring up one. If you're a landowner and all of a sudden, and you've been used to using east winds, and you burn your land east winds, all of a sudden now guess what? A development gets plunked down next to you on your west side. You're going to be very less likely to use your east winds. This is just one thing that we were thinking of, some way to get as part of this planning process, because if you're a developer in Florida, you've got to look at the floodplain map, you've got to do all kinds of flooding stuff, but you don't do anything for smoke. So if your neighbor has been used to doing that, this is a weird issue that I've gotten lots of conflicting comments on from attorneys and just land use advocates about why am I being punished because a developer put their development next to me. I've always been working this land 4 or 5 generations, and now you've got to stop. Development next to these natural areas is a huge issue because, like, we can burn 1,000 acres at a time. The more houses that gets put next to us, our size has to get small now to reduce the smoke, which means more burn days, which means less burning. So the cool thing is, though, all these fire councils and all the folks that meet like this, we are very strong in, you know, solving these issues. So I just wanted to put that up there as something else to worry about, you know, that really restricts our burning. But as a way to make it nice, it's great that all of us are here talking about this stuff. So that's all I have.